For USCFootball.com, I'm Jack Smith, joined by Chris Treviño for instant analysis for USC's Tuesday practice of Utah State Week. Chris, it's good to be back after a big win for USC, 27-20 over LSU. Have you come down from the high of that win on Sunday? It's a short week, so I kind of need you to speed it up.
Yeah, it's a very short week. I was very tired. We didn't get a lot of sleep in Vegas. It's obviously Las Vegas. We brought a little bit of the heat back. It is a hot day today, not quite as hot as the desert, and it will be hotter this week. But yeah, it was a warm one today, Jack, but I'm ready. Short week, we got to hit the ground.
Believe the high was 88 today. It'll be 100 on Friday, but then back down to 98, so a little cooler on Saturday for the game. But it's a 8 o'clock, so we'll be fine. It's a short week and a late game, so you mitigate that a little bit. But USC got to the field on Tuesday. It was their first practice of the week. What were your overall thoughts?
A lot of good vibes. This team is 1-0. They're very excited to be 1-0, but that isn't the goal. Beating LSU was not the goal of the season. The goal of the season, win national championship, go to the playoff, whatever. But obviously a great start to the season. A lot of smiling faces, a lot of energy. Everyone was excited, but I also felt like they were ready to move it on. Short week, as we mentioned. We'll talk about that a little more later. But they got Utah State this week. Coliseum home opener. Should be a nice crowd there. 8 p.m. kickoff, not too hot. So I think everyone is excited, still basking a little bit in the glow of that big win. But they also seem focused because they got an opponent next week. They got a bye that week, and then they got a big Michigan game. So things need to be getting done.
Any specific observations from the media portion that we got to watch of practice?
Yeah, I think just the energy. Specifically, we got to watch the linebacker drill. They were doing some run defense stuff. Obviously, I know USC fans love to hear that, run defense. After a good showing in Vegas, Eric Gentry, super physical. This was just a shells practice. Give him a little bit of a rest. It is a short week. No bottoms, just the shells up top. But Eric Gentry was really laying into some pads during that run defense drill. He's got a lot of confidence right now, and as he should be. He was one of the star players from that LSU win. So Eric Gentry, a lot of physicality and pretty healthy all around coming back from Vegas.
Yeah, Matt Entz last week, it seemed like he had maybe lost his voice. He was still shouting, but it was a little hoarse. This time he had his voice, and you could really hear him, and he was excited with the hits that Gentry was putting on the pads. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of, "That's it right there. That's how you do it." He was pretty pleased at what he saw.
That's it, Eric. That's it, Eric. Elbows inside. He's a great clapper and yeller. He's got a great combination of both. Yeah, I don't know how he doesn't lose his voice every week. I think he's just like Wolverine. It just regenerates so quickly.
We got to talk to Lincoln Riley today, and one coach that as there's a helicopter that goes over our heads, one coach I don't think is ever going to lose his voice is Danton Lynn, because Lincoln Riley mentioned his first impressions of coaching a game with Danton is on the sideline. He's so calm. Lincoln said, "I feel like I'm calm. He's like me, but he's just focused. He's got that calm presence on the sideline." Were there any other things that you kind of took to heart about what Lincoln said about his first game with Danton Lynn?
I just wanted to talk a little bit about Danton and that demeanor. Just so unassuming. You would not assume that he was, the DC of a major college program. He gives off like an analyst vibes. I think he just has no ego. He's so humble and so calm. I've never seen him yell in practice. I've never seen him curse. I've never seen him actually kind of look angry. He just has this, very plain expression on his face all the time. And, we see him smile, but I've literally never seen him act like a fiery defensive coach. But again, that doesn't matter. We know he's a good coach. He's a good football player in his day, but we just don't see that out of him. I think that's just super interesting as a defensive coach, and for a defense that was so tough on LSU and so tough physically up front and all those things that we were talking about in the offseason show, just to see them. And I think that kind of, you take on the personality of your coach, and this is a fiery team, but I think they have a little bit of calmness, quiet confidence about them. And just seeing him on the sideline wearing at that gum, he's a gum guy. Like Pete Carroll was a gum guy. He was going through that. I got to ask him, is it one piece of gum the whole time, or is it multiple pieces? Because if it's one piece of gum, God have mercy on that piece.
Well, and if it's a certain flavor, I feel like a sponsorship is in order. Someone's got to send him a whole shipment here to Heritage Hall behind us. I'm sure he's got an office somewhere. I think it needs a shipment of whatever flavor that gum is. Did you have any other takeaways from what Lincoln had to say after practice?
Not really. It was pretty standard. Talked about the young offensive linemen that made starts against LSU, Alani Noah, Elijah Paige. We've talked about how, I think on Instant last week, at some point you have to throw those guys into the deep end and see what happens. Do they sink? Do they float? What have you? And both of those guys, they swam. We didn't really know what it was going to look like. Elijah Paige played well. Alani Noah played well. Yes, there were ups and downs. but they're still young players, and Lincoln Riley called them young, talented players. They have the talent to be really, really good for this offensive line. They just need to grow a little more. And how are you going to do that? Reps.
Another thing Lincoln Riley mentioned in that same regard is that when you turn on the tape from a game like that, most fans, after a big win, just assume that a team played perfectly. He said they don't want to look at it like that. He said they left some stuff on the table in terms of the passing offense. He thought the special teams was good, but of course, it wasn't a touchback every single time. There was a missed field goal. Defensively, there were bits of miscommunication, but overall a good day. And it was very clear that they're not looking at it just because they beat LSU, they played a perfect game. There are things they still want to correct because it was week 1, and even though you played a big team and got a win, you still have to look at it that way.
Yeah, the goal is for that week 1 performance to be their worst performance of the season. That is not going to be the same team come week 8, week 6, week 12, what have you. It can't be if they want to make it to the national championship or get in that playoff. See how we're talking about a potential playoff team here after a week 1 win? That's funny how those things work, Jack.
Yeah, I'm not sure Connor had them in the playoffs. I was with my record prediction right on the edge. I said they'd be maybe in the fringe, and it'd probably come down to that Notre Dame game. But as we mentioned on Instant Analysis last week, both teams were desperate. Whichever team lost, it was going to hurt real bad because of what the programs have been through under their 2 coaches, with Brian Kelly losing both of his openers and USC being disappointing last year. But we did say that whichever team won was set up in a good path to the playoff in this 12-team format, and I still think that rings true for USC. You've seen them shoot all the way up to the AP number 13 team based off just 1 win.
Yeah, momentum is a real thing, and especially momentum with this kind of schedule. You're going to get Utah State this week. We know USC is going to beat Utah State. There's no doubt about it. Anything can happen. But you're thinking they're 2-0. They're going to go in that bye. They're going to go to Michigan with a lot of confidence and a lot of rest under them and a lot of preparation. So anything could happen. I know we're looking at the Michigan game like, can they beat them? Obviously, it's still going to be a tall task, but now you're a little bit more confident that they can go in there and beat them, especially if this defense can grow even more over the next 2 weeks, one being a bye week. But a big confidence builder up ahead this weekend with Utah State in the Coliseum, and hopefully the fans come out and make it a great environment for the team returning from the desert.
One thing that we have to talk about with Lincoln, he was asked about something that came out in the press basically 30 minutes before all the interviews started, a TMZ report about an incident Miller Moss had with a former roommate all the way back in 2022. University had already issued statement, Miller Moss had issued a statement, and Lincoln Riley said he didn't really have any other words. He did think the timing was interesting given, Miller Moss was in that national spotlight, and it looked like maybe TMZ was trying to capitalize on a potential story there. We're not going to lay it all out. This is, news from 3 years ago at this point, where everybody on all sides has already made statements. So if you want to go find that, you can do that. I don't think, though, Chris, if they don't, they're really missing anything substantial 3 years after the fact.
Yeah, it felt like something they were holding for a while. It just felt like a non-story, and just capitalizing on, Miller Moss, USC, kind of being hot right now in social media and everything. So yeah, it just felt like a non-story. And again, if you want to go read it, you can. If you want to give the click, you can. But yeah, just very interesting, as Lincoln Riley would say, the timing of that piece hitting.
Got to talk to a couple other offensive players after Lincoln Riley spoke. You and I were there with Elijah Paige. We also heard from Kyle Ford, Jonah Monheim, and a couple of others. Where would you like to start with the players that we got to hear from after practice?
I kind of want to start with Kyle, because Kyle's always a great interview. He'll be returning to the Coliseum this weekend, back in a USC Trojans uniform, because the last time he was here, he was on the other side in a UCLA uniform, so very interesting. But yeah, the first question was about Kyron Hudson and his amazing catches. He's the roommate of Kyron Hudson, and he just told him 5 times last night, like, I can't believe you made those catches.
I want to ask Kyle at some point, since they're roommates and they have a house or an apartment together, like, when are those photos getting blown up and framed and hung on the walls? I feel like any extra space on the walls should be dedicated to pictures of not one catch, but both of them. Because Kyron said yesterday night on Trojans Live that the second one was harder, and that was kind of the take that I had as it happened, because both of them were difficult, but to make a one-handed catch while getting the definition of targeting applied to you and then getting back up to win the game, I don't know, I thought that one was maybe a little bit harder.
I had the exact same argument. I feel like the second one was much harder to make, even though stylistically the first one looks just incredible reaching on the way back. I think they should just get some custom fatheads made up of those catches. I don't know if Fatheads is still a company that's existing, but they should send them some of those catches just for a little bit of free publicity.
I was interested too when Kyle Ford, I was asking him about the defense, and he said he knew Danton Lynn was going to install that defense here at USC. He knew they were going to have success. He saw it on the sideline with him last year, said he's a great coach, and it seemed like no doubt in his mind that defense would make its way to USC. And I feel like through one performance, we did see a similar defense to what Danton Lynn had at UCLA last year.
Yeah, a lot of expectations, and they met those expectations in week one. I know it's only week one, but the ceiling is rising for that defensive unit. And Kyle Ford obviously is a guy who knows both sides of the coin. He was with an Alex Grinch defense in 2022 and a Danton Lynn defense last season, and now again reunited here at USC. So he's got an interesting perspective, and yeah, just all the confidence that Lynn was going to be able to show signs of turning this defense around, and they did week one.
On the topic that Lincoln Riley mentioned of ups and downs, we got to talk to Elijah Paige. That seemed to be his takeaway from the offensive line, from his performance, from some of the other young guys on the line. What stood out to you most about what Elijah had to say?
Yeah, I mean, Elijah in a big spot. Left tackle, the most important position on the offensive line. You can argue that, protecting the blind side of his cornerback. That's a lot for a redshirt guy and a guy who hasn't made many starts. Specifically, he's only made one start, 2 after this weekend. But loud environment. He talked about the noise, how it was super hard to hear, and he was having to rely on Emmanuel Pregnon next to him, his teammate. They seem to have a close relationship. Just watching them down on the sideline, left guard, left tackle, very symbiotic. And E-Man was helping him out a lot, telling him what was happening if he could not hear the play come down the line from Jonah. And I was surprised because I asked him, when did you feel settled into this game? Because obviously it's a lot of nerves, a lot of pressure. Everyone's watching this game in a big environment against an SEC defense. And he said, I kind of felt settled the entire time. I was like, okay, kudos to you. And that's why we think Elijah Paige can be a special player, just given his size and his mentality, already starting as the left tackle and, looking like the franchise tackle for this team for a couple seasons.
And Emmanuel Pregnon at left guard. Alani Noah got the start at right guard in a position battle that wasn't decided on the depth chart, so we didn't know what to expect. And we've seen the Trojans rotate through offensive line combinations the last couple of years, but they started Alani Noah. They stuck with Alani Noah, same class as Elijah Paige, and he said that he was really impressive and that recently, across these last couple of weeks, his hard work has really stood out and he started to separate himself for that job.
Yeah, and that's great news because Alani Noah was the big question mark. Well, in general, right guard was the big question mark. Was it Amos Taulele? Was it Alani Noah? And it felt like it was Alani Noah's. He started last year, first true freshman to start in quite some time there, and he had the talent. He was making a lot of buzz in fall camp last year. Went through some personal stuff off the field. Had to kind of go through some stuff away from football, and it's just great to see him back and that hard work paying off because he's a really talented guy. He's massive. He's so strong. He's a road grader, and he's more athletic than people give him credit for. So Alani Noah has to be the future of that guard spot, and you're hoping Amos can be the future of that left guard spot when Emmanuel Pregnon moves on to the NFL. But Alani Noah has to be the rock at right guard for now, and I think you're starting to see that. You need more tape of that. You need more reps of that, but this weekend is going to be a great opportunity to build on that confidence and build off what he did in week one against LSU. Wasn't perfect, but a lot of good things were shown.
Before we wrap up, did you have any other big takeaways from today?
I don't think so. I think a lot of people are just excited that they're back in the Coliseum. They're 1-0, and I know a lot of people maybe didn't think they would be 1-0, but they are. So I'm just hoping the USC fan base comes and shows out after they put on a really good performance in Sin City.
I'd say the team put on a good performance and the fans put on a pretty good performance, and I know Jacoby Lane was tweeting about it earlier, but just the fact the home opener is this weekend, they all want the fans to be out there. Lincoln Riley wants the fans to be out there and bring that environment that was in Vegas over to the Coliseum. It'll be a late kick, so you can do whatever you want for dinner and then make your way over to the game, but then you might have to stay up a little bit late. But who knows? Trojans take on the Utah State Aggies on Saturday. He's Chris Treviño. I'm Jack Smith. This has been Analysis. Make sure you're checking out USCfootball.com for more.